Hello and welcome to What the F Just Happened Today, your essential guide to the daily shock and awe in national politics. I'm Joe Amditis. Let's get to it. It's Tuesday, March 2nd, 2021. Welcome to day 42. Joe Biden said the United States expects to have a large enough supply of coronavirus vaccines to vaccinate every adult in the country by the end of May, 2 months earlier than anticipated. The White House said it was increasing supply of the Moderna and Pfizer vaccines to states next week up to 15.2 million doses per week. That number is up from 14.5 million. States will also receive 2.8 million doses of Johnson & Johnson's vaccine starting this week. White House Coronavirus Coordinator Jeff Zients said states should prepare to administer 17 to 18 million total weekly doses of both Pfizer and Moderna vaccines by early April. The supply of Johnson & Johnson doses will climb to 4 to 6 million doses per week by the end of March, and 5 to 6 million per week through the end of April. Meanwhile, the World Health Organization warned that the global number of new coronavirus cases rose for the first time in nearly 2 months. Over the past week, cases jumped in every region except for Africa and the Western Pacific. The WHO blamed the surge on new variants and premature efforts to lift public health restrictions. In Texas, Governor Greg Abbott ended his statewide mask mandate, saying it is now time to open Texas 100%. All businesses in the state will be able to reopen next week with no capacity limits. Meanwhile, more than 6,000 people were hospitalized with COVID-19 in Texas today alone, with more than 1,700 of those patients going to intensive care units. Still, Abbott said the state mandates are no longer needed. Mississippi Governor Tate Reeves also lifted his state's mask mandate, saying that hospitalizations in the state have plummeted and that cases have declined dramatically. CDC Director Dr. Rochelle Walensky, however, said she was really worried about rolling back restrictions. CDC Director Dr. Rochelle Walensky said she was really worried about rolling back restrictions in some states, cautioning that with stalling cases and new variants spreading, we stand to completely lose the hard-earned ground we have gained. Moving on, FBI Director Christopher Wray told the Senate Judiciary Committee that the January 6th insurrection was an inspiration to a number of terrorist extremists, and that he considers the attack domestic terrorism. Wray defended the FBI's handling of intelligence during the weeks leading up to January 6th, saying the FBI tracked a large amount of information about the potential for violence, but he did not explain what the FBI did with that information. Wray also told lawmakers that there is no evidence indicating that the rioters were fake Trump supporters, a baseless claim made by Republican Senator Ron Johnson in recent weeks in an effort to downplay the violence committed by the pro-Trump mob. Wray said that there are currently 2,000 ongoing domestic terrorism investigations, up from almost 1,000 when he first started in 2017. He added, "The problem of domestic terrorism has been metastasizing across the country for a long time now, and it's not going away anytime soon." Meanwhile, the Supreme Court is hearing arguments over 2 Arizona voting restrictions, one that requires election officials to discard ballots that were cast at the wrong precinct, and the other makes it a crime to collect ballots for delivery to polling places. Democrats sued, arguing that Republicans are increasingly trying to suppress the vote and that the rules discriminate against minority populations and that they violate Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act. The justices reportedly seemed poised to uphold both Arizona laws. Moving on, the United States needs 20,000 beds to shelter unaccompanied migrant children who are crossing the U.S.-Mexico border. While Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas has claimed yesterday that the current influx is not a crisis, Biden was briefed today that the number of migrant children is on pace to exceed the all-time record by about 45%. The Department of Health and Human Services plans to loosen its coronavirus protocols to make room for an additional 2,000 children and teens. Biden has asked Mexico's president, Andrés Manuel López Obrador, for help in keeping Central American migrants from immediately surging north toward the United States through Mexico. Meanwhile, the Senate confirmed Miguel Cardona as the new education secretary. Cardona will be tasked with helping to reopen schools, addressing inequity in the nation's education system, and managing the $1.5 trillion federal student loan program. Moving on, the Biden administration sanctioned 7 senior Russian government figures over the poisoning and imprisonment of opposition leader Alexei Navalny. The sanctions block access to financial or other assets in the United States, and the European Union has also issued its own sanctions against 4 top Russian officials. Meanwhile, the Manhattan District Attorney's Office has increased their focus on the Trump Organization's chief financial officer as part of their investigation into potential financial fraud. District Attorney Cyrus Vance has been asking witnesses about Alan Weisselberg and his sons Barry and Jack Weisselberg regarding whether Trump and the Trump Organization manipulated property values in order to obtain loans and tax benefits. In 2018, Weisselberg was granted immunity by federal prosecutors in New York as part of their criminal investigation into hush money payments made to Stormy Daniels and Karen McDougal during the 2016 presidential campaign. And finally, former White House Press Secretary Kayleigh McEnany will join Fox News as an on-air commentator. McEnany, who told reporters, "I will never lie to you," when she first took on the role of White House Press Secretary, routinely defended and promoted Trump's misleading statements during press conferences.
That's all for now. You can find the links and sources for all of these stories on the main website. And as always, visit whatthefuckjusthappenedtoday.com for the latest news and headlines. Until next time, I'm Joe Amditas.